Welcome back, everyone, to the Slim Flippers. I am Wes, along with my friend David. And David, I'm ready for lesson number 3, class session number 3. And hopefully, those people that are coming along with me, we're learning some stuff.
Well, today is probably going to be a lot more learning, Wes. Last week, we learned a lot about what you picked up, and that was really what the whole assignment was. And, we asked you to go out and maybe find some other ones to kind of pick a direction to start kind of finding a kind of a direction of things that you want to do. So, because, collecting is fun. And once you kind of really have a niche of something that you like, it makes it a lot more fun. So I think we'll start out this week, Wes. But what we're going to cover today is what's going to be important is I think before we end today, you need to learn how to properly handle, protect, inspect, and store comics. And that's really what we want to talk about by the end of the day. But you did go out and get some comics last week. So tell me what you found.
Well, I bought some of the Doom.
Right. Okay.
I think I had, I think it was number 2. I think it was this one. I had number 2.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And then I had number 7, I think, which was this one right here.
Yep. That's a cool cover.
Well, now, which I'm one board short, I have 2.
Oh, okay.
I have 3.
Cool. There you go. So now you got almost.
It goes all the way up. I've got it all the way up to 12 now.
There you go. Look at that. So now you've actually got to run.
Almost.
Yeah.
Number 1 was not in the store.
Oh,
that's the only one I don't have. So if you know anybody that's got number 1, here's number 12.
I can't remember too. I can look that up and tell you that's one of the fun things about having the tools that we use. But I think that was Doom 2099, right? I don't know how many that runs through. I think that's 8. Yes, it's actually 64. It's 64 in the series. It started in 1993. So
64. Okay. Well, I have 2 through 12.
So there you go. There you go. And there are 3 major keys in that. And that would happen to be number 1, and we'll talk about keys at some point, but that's number 1 and number 44. So actually 2 number 1s. There's an error book, apparently. That's a key. That's the only key.
What you're saying is I'm never going to find number 1.
Well, if there's any consolation to you, the high price for a number 1 is about $3. So anyway, but still cool though. So, I mean, you kind of get a direction, you're kind of collecting something and you're kind of looking through it. Now, the fun part is when you start reading them and actually enjoy what you read. So have you started reading the Absolute Batman yet?
I have not.
You need to read that one.
I have not.
You got to read that one.
I'm trying to find some time. We're getting ready to start back to school and it's busier by the day. So
I completely understand that. All right. Well, we saw some of the stuff that you got, and that's cool. So, but we're going to kind of go through this. I do think it's important to kind of talk a little bit about when you're starting to build a collection, you kind of need to know how to protect it. And there's some important things to kind of understand. And this is kind of why it matters. Now, as a collector, you want to make sure that when you have a comic, you want to make sure that it is well protected. You want to make sure that it's in a nice bag and board. You want to make sure that the bag and board fits properly. That's actually very, very important. But especially if you're keeping something that's, say, long-term, or you're collecting it and you want to basically archive that and you want to keep it safe for a long time, the more expensive the bag and boards will be. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's a lot of different things you can do to protect the comic as well. You can also get these. These are hard. They're like a I guess you would kind of equivalent to like if you collect baseball cards and you have a cover that goes on them. They're basically the exact same thing. So you can put them in there and that protects the comic as well. So now it's a hard cover. So those are the different kind of things you can do. And of course, it's very important to always understand that, you're trying to protect that comic from the most important things that go after comics. That's moisture, heat, sunlight, dirt, pressure, bending, any kind of moisture is going to cause rust in the staples, any kind of poor handling. And I brought a couple old comics because I'll show you what bad handling will be and what good handling could be. Like these are kind of old. Let me see if I got a bad one sitting here though. So I don't want to mess up a good one.
Well, before you talk about that, I had talked to to you about this off camera, and then we were talking about these kind of boards,
Right.
and why they are not good. These are thick, and I posed the question to the guy at the comic book store, and he said, "No, you don't want to do that because the acid."
Right. Yeah, you're going to always want to get acid-free SBS boards, and that's it. Now, and there's different sizes. There's 24s, 26. You can go all the way up. There's different size points that you would get, and this is kind of the important part. So you could spend a lot of money getting bags and boards, and I have ordered thousands and thousands of bags and boards over just in the past. Well, 3.5 years I've ordered.
I do have one little caveat to that. I have a friend that's got a lot of these. Maybe he could send me.
Yes, I can. Yes, no, but they're I buy them 1,000 at a time, and I go through them 1,000 at a time. That's what's crazy. But one of the things that you can do, and this is something that I do because as a reseller also, because I like a lot of the stuff. I don't keep everything, so I have stuff that's in my collection, obviously, and those are often my boxes. And that's the other thing you really need to get, Wes, is a good comic box. I don't have a light one here, but
now, and I wanted to ask you about this because one of the comic book stores I was at this week, they had I guess you call it a short box,
right?
And they had a Captain America,
yeah,
and those were really, really cool. And I almost bought that and a Hulk, but I didn't because they wanted $25 for it. I was like, it's cardboard.
No, you should be able to get those for about $14. I buy them. I'll buy the colored ones or the fancy ones. They're made by NECA. I'll buy those typically off of eBay I'll get 5 of them for roughly $55. But those are for my like better collections and stuff. Plus, they look better stacked up than the white boxes. But you can buy 10 BCW boxes for $50. I mean, I
don't have those better collections though.
Yeah. So no, it just looks better because the entire spare bedroom has a wall of comics, and that just looks nicer with Hulk and Spider-Man and all that than a bunch of white boxes. So, but
nice little mosaic you got going.
Exactly, got a nice little mosaic, and then in here, I've got them all different ones. So, but so you definitely want to make sure you got a good box. And right now, you probably could just get one box and you'd be okay. Boxes are important because one, you have to store your comics straight up and down. What'll happen is, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people, you'll go to garage sales and you'll see comics without any bags or boards, and they're stacked like this. And they'll stack them, all there. And then what'll happen is after time, there'll be a warping, and that will actually, what they get as spine rolls, what you get on there. So the books just naturally start to concave, and the center part comes down and the top comes up, and then these little things get spine rolls, and you can kind of almost see, you can't really see, it's going to be hard to see, but there is a bit of a spine roll on this particular comic. I mean, it can be pressed out, they can be changed, but the important part is that keeping them in the bag and board, protects the spine, protects that. And a minimum, I would probably say, is a 24 point, and 24 point size board, meaning that's the thickness. And I use a 24 point. And here's the thing that I do is, for most of the bags and boards that I have, there's a difference in size. So your Golden Age comics are a little bit bigger. Your Silver Age comics are a little bit smaller. Your regular and your modern comics are a little bit smaller yet, right? So they come down to a board will be about 6 7/8. Now I use a silver regular size board, which is 7 inches by 10.5. The reason why I do that is because it will hold a Silver Age comic and it'll hold a modern comic. Although the only difference is, and you can kind of see sometimes, is that some of these comics, even though they fit in here, they may have a little bit of room. They have some room at the top and the bottom, but that's one of the things, is kind of make sure that it's important.
That's tight in there, isn't it?
It's tight, but it's not on the sides. You can kind of see the white around the edge, and you can see at the bottom. Now, what will happen is you can kind of see these comics sliding around. That can also be a problem, right? Because a comic can slide. It can get a corner in a ding or something like that. You kind of would like to have the comic actually sit in there straight and flat and tight, but not like so tight that it warps it or anything.
Right.
So, but comics are important. And like I said, I kind of use the 24 point boards and bags, or 24 point board, because it's the right size and then it's the right thickness. It does keep it pretty well solid. And the size 7 by 10.5 I go up a size for the bag. Well, the same size bag. It's a silver regular, and the bag's 7 1/8 by 10 1/2. So slides in there nicely, holds the comic pretty decently. And I mean, this is this is basically the setup that I have. And you know, they're, like I said, there's a shiny side and a dull side when you get these. It's important to know that the shiny side goes to the back of the comic, and that's what keeps it from rubbing color and all that. But these boards generally don't fade.
Okay, so the shiny side goes to the back.
Right. The shiny side goes to the back because the other side could potentially actually have some color rub and stuff on there. But the shiny side is what the protective side is. So and that goes this way, and then the flap goes over the top. So
does the flap lay on the cover?
No, it lays on the back, so it comes over. So you would just basically take a comic. We'll show this one for an example. But so this is one that I probably put in. All right, so we'll pull this out nice and gently. And that's the other thing to do, is learning how to kind of take them in and out. You always want to try and protect the spine. Don't want to grab the spine by the center. Now, this is not an expensive book by any means, okay? So I'm using it as an example. You don't want to pick it up by the middle. You want to try and pick it up by the ends. You want to try and hold it. If it's a very expensive book, you probably want to use gloves, or you want to just use a board and use it to flip around. But one of the things that's very important is to protect the spine. If you can kind of see, if you see some light on this, I don't know if you can see it, you can almost see, you can kind of see some dents in the side. Those are called spine ticks. And a spine tick, they're pretty common. And what will happen is, the reason you get spine ticks is because someone will be in a box and they'll pull the comic out this way and they will bend it, and the comic bends. And it automatically will just put a spine tick in there. And if you do that enough, it puts a break, and the color break ruins the grade. So, but it's very simple, you know, using these to put them in, you know, you just basically, and this is hard to do on the video because it's not there. You basically just slide it in very carefully from the top to bottom, close it down, and then it keeps it pretty nice. And like I said, these fit fairly, they may be a little loose in there, but because I buy so many comics, this size works really well for most of them.
All right, so you're saying the shiny side is back here?
Yeah, the shiny side goes towards the back of the comic. So, does that make sense?
Yep.
So the back side of the comic. So, but generally what I do is I'll just, like, especially I'll make up a bunch of bags and boards, and I'll have them already done. And then when I get a comic collection that's not in bags and boards, or if I get a comic collection that are in the boards that they come with, like, I'll show you this one. This one's a horrible one. So I'll teach you a little trick too. Always take off your tape. Always take off your tape, or bend it backwards and tape it down, because it's very easy to ruin a book. You want to tape that down or pull it back. It grabs a hold of the front, and then all of a sudden you've ruined your book. This bag is one of the really old ones, and you can't see it very well, but this is a very good example of an old board. If you look at this hard enough, I don't think you can see it. Can you see the imprint of the comic in there?
See it.
Yeah. Okay, so that, look, there you go.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens when you leave it in too long. So even if you're a collector, it's better to use the higher end boards for your collection. As a reseller, I'm probably not going to do that because it just costs more. I'm trying to keep that down to pennies.
So your 24 is your reselling boards, and what is your collection boards?
They make a little bit higher grade board. I can tell you exactly. You can either, now for some comics, you might even want to get the clear ones. They're kind of cool too, because the clear board allows you to see the back, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm looking probably more for like a 30 point or a 60 point back, and they're really solid. Or
I mean, if you get Absolute Batman the first run,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you're definitely going to put that in a 60.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep it probably, and seeing some of those, I would probably send them off to be graded. So, but there's other things you can use too. I'll grab one if you want. I'll show you something else. Okay. So these are things you can get for really, if you don't want to get a comic graded. Let's say, for instance, you don't want to get it graded, but you don't want it to get destroyed or damaged. These are called comic capsules, and you can buy them 10 at a time. They're about $8 to $10 or so a piece. But it's called a comic capsule, and basically all it is you can pop this open at the top, and the comic will come out. And they protect the comic, and they keep it nice, just like a graded comic, more or less. Whoop, there we go. And but it keeps it lot nicer and a lot safer. And it's very similar to these. There's very similar, but these, there's no bending on these. These do have a little bit of bend.
So those are the same as like the ones on the shelf behind you, but those have the numbers at the top that should be graded, obviously.
Right. So a graded comic is completely different. It has a grading on it. It has a number. It's encased, and you can never take it out. Well, you can,
but
if you're going to
grade.
Right. If you get, well, yeah, it does. But I mean, if you were going to get, let's say you might buy a comic that, you know, for someone like me, I might buy a comic that has potential for upgrade, so I can maybe clean it, press it, and do something if I saw it never been pressed, and I would probably get that and send it in. But yeah, you want to make sure that you're keeping these in nice and that. So like this was a comic that I just recently got, right? And it's just you can just see. I mean, it's just obvious that the back of this thing, you can see the colorway, so it's come out of it. So and that can happen even with this comic if you think about it. I mean, it looks okay, but some of that color is actually in that board now. So you want to make sure you have a good bag and board. You want to make sure that you properly store it. So again, a decent comic and a decent bag and board, and you slide that in. The one thing it will do, especially a new bag and board, is it makes it look nicer even, right? So it presents well. So, if you're selling them or you're reselling them, this is how you make it look better, especially on live auctions. Like this will go in my live auction. And that's, but again, protecting them, that's the biggest thing. Making sure you have the right size bag and board, make sure you know what you're kind of keeping it for long term. So, and then, as far as handling comics go, you want to at least make sure your hands are clean. You would not believe how much a fingerprint will do to a comic or oils on your fingers.
Oh yeah.
So I always say, you want to be able to, especially when you're working with comics or you're trying to assess, the grade or assess, what this comic's worth, or, is this one I should try to sell, or if I'm going to keep it in my collection, or, it's just a lot of different things. You want to have a good surface to work on, and you want to make sure your hands are clean. And you want to make sure that when you're taking the comic out, that you support the entire comic. You're keeping it supported. You're not grabbing it by any one corner. You're not holding it by the middle. And I'm not using a comic for this because I don't want people to go, well, you're doing it.
I'm never buying that.
Anyway, you want to make sure you're supporting the entire comic, right? So you want to make sure that you're being very careful about opening it. You're looking at the staples. And you definitely want to keep tape away from them. So that's just some of the stuff that you do.
So you're saying, Dave, it's probably not a good idea to force a comic into a bag, correct?
You don't want to force it. No, you want to be able to just slide that baby in there. So anyway, but for your more expensive comics, you definitely don't want to handle them too much either. I mean, if you're, obviously some comics are meant to be read.
Right.
And I have read mine. And so I'm very careful about it. On the surface, I'm very careful about reading it. And I put it nicely back in the board in the bag. So I think that's part of it.
Just so you could you know what? I'm just going to read it on my phone from now on.
Yeah. Well, and that's always a possibility too. So, but anyway, like I said, one of the biggest gotchas is making sure, again, that, that you take the tape and you don't do it. Now, a lot of people will do this too, Wes. Is like, you'll see this right here. They'll just fold the flap in. You can do that as well. I don't really
like the tape myself.
I'm not a big fan of the tape. Sometimes it works good.
Personally worries me. It would grab the one that I would have that would actually be worth something.
Yeah. So, but folding it in is always possible. I mean, you can kind of fold them in. It just really depends on your preference. I'll use tape. But I also, when I tape it, it's a small piece of tape, and I always do one piece, and then I can easily take it off. Mm-hmm. And I will always remove, as you see what I did right here, I'll always remove it. Here's the pieces right here. I always remove the tape before I do anything, and I'll put a new piece of tape on. It's just easier. But so anyway, that's what's important too. And having a clean surface to work on, that's the other part about this. So one of the things that I use, Wes, is this is just a cutting board. And it's just a plain old cutting board. Yeah, nothing special about it. I'll do this. Actually, just lays on my table. I can keep it clean. I can see what's going on. There's no cuts on this side. So Somebody used my cutting board for cutting. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, but this is the side I use.
Well, comics.
Like, don't be doing that. I don't know who borrowed my board. Anyway,
Well, let me
but
see
that's
who's in the house.
well, see whoever has a knife. So, but anyway, I use that as part of my, assessing a comic and trying to figure it out and using that. But now, I guess one of the questions I would ask you, Wes, is, well, first of all, do you have bags and boards? You already had some?
No. The only ones I have is the ones where I bought.
Okay. So I would definitely recommend you can go to Amazon and order them. For most part, they're decent. Just make sure you get a decent brand name. Like I said, 26 point. You could get to the regular silver size is what they are, and you got to buy the same bag and the board. So the best thing is you don't want the bag and the board to be two different sizes. You don't want the board to slide in the bag, and you don't want to force the bag.
How do you know that? How do you know?
You know by sizes. So like I said, I use the box, the bag that I use, the board I use is 7 inches by 10.5, and the bag that I use is 7 1/8 by 10.5. So it's just wide enough to slide the board in, and it slides in perfectly. And then the comic goes in nice and tight.
When you said you buy a good one, what do you mean? What brand? Is there different?
Well, that's a good question. So for me, I go to Comic Pro Line. I just like them because I can buy them in bulk, right? So I got set up with them. But from Amazon, if you were to go to get bags and boards, I'll tell you, I probably have some in here that I bought before, but I think it's BCW is decent. I've never really had any problems. Now there's some off-brand names that may be okay. Again, it really depends on what you're doing with them. I would go for the higher grade boards for stuff that's your collection, and stuff that you're selling for reselling. It needs to be taken care of and protected, but right. I'm not going to pay more for that bag and board because if somebody's buying it for their collection, they're probably going to get it and change the bag and board anyway. Right. To whatever they want, or they're getting it to send it for grading.
That makes sense.
So anyway, but that's the other thing. And then, the important part about that is that it keeps it upright. Again, it doesn't store it flat. And, you never want to store your comics flat. Even if they're in a bag and board, I'll be honest with you, you don't want to stack them because it can in time weight them down in the center. Standing them up is the best way to do that. So anyway,
well, I wanted to show you some books that I picked up this week as well.
Sure.
There's some other ones. This reminded me, you posted something on one of your pages. I can't remember what it was, but you remember these guys.
Josie and the Pussycats. I love Josie and the Pussycats.
Got this one, Life with Archie.
Some of those books are really cool. Actually, some of those books are really valuable. It depends on if there's innuendos on them.
Oh, yeah. Innuendos.
Yeah.
Here he's bowling. Check that one out.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But a couple that I really liked, and this was it come along, I think about the time I was born, actually, or it was already going on. But you remember this TV show?
Yeah, Lost in Space. Oh, there's a nice one. That's a Gold Key comic.
Yeah.
So
here's another one.
Oh, cool. Look at that.
But one that I really wanted to show you, and it's not even in a bag and board. It kind of makes me sad, but look at this one.
Oh, yes. Classics. Those are cool. 15-cent comics.
L. Frank Baum wrote it. Look at that.
Yeah. Those are neat. Boy, you need to get that in the bag and board.
Yeah.
So
I need
that's
to get some.
Definitely the next lesson we're going to probably talk about a little bit about, assessing. Wow, look at the pages. You know what's really good about that? The colors are great on that.
Yeah.
It's just an off-white. It's an off-white page, but man, those are nice.
The thing that I really wanted to show you, and this is, unfortunately, I don't have the cover to it. Okay.
Oh man, which one is that?
I don't know. It's a bigger comic. Here's a regular size comic book.
Yeah. No, it's a one they call the magazine. Is there an industry page on there, or like an inside page?
No, but look, Batman the Boy Wonder.
Up there in that corner, it doesn't say. Oh no! Wow. I'll be darned. No, it's I think it's one of those DC magazines.
The reason why I want to show you this is so cool.
Oh, the inside. Yeah, that is cool. Wow, look at that. I'm trying to think if there's a way you could probably Google search the front page, and it will tell you what comic it belongs to. But it's one of the DC magazines. It's the oversized ones.
What I would really like to do, because I'm just the way I am, but I'd like to actually take this page out and go have it laminated professionally.
Yeah, have it actually turn into a poster.
Yeah, look at that.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. So definitely cool. Well, that's but you kind of learn a little bit about some of the stuff, and as far as you're looking at stuff that you kind of start to like, right? So you're obviously drawn to some of the art and different things like that. So I think that's a good place to start. I think when you start learning, the first thing you kind of learn, and like I said, we've talked about storing comics and making sure that they're in proper bags and boards and they look good, and then a little bit about starting to kind of learn about reviewing things and having the right tools. Now I have a couple tools that I use, and I'll show you this one. This is one of my favorite ones. For one thing, is because I can, it's got the big
Mr. Monocle.
Yeah, it's like a big monocle. It actually got a little dust on it because it's been sitting over there and I haven't used it in about 2 weeks. But it also has a really small one right here that you can use and get up close. But what's cool about this is it actually opens up, and now I can set it on the comic, or I can set it on the side with a light, and you can kind of see.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. So that I can actually look at this and change the angle and set it down and kind of look, and I'm able to see it. And inside there, I can see measurements. So if I really want to assess a comic and say, how big is the cut on there, or how big is the color break, I can kind of look at it and get an assessment on it. And it helps me to review a comic very closely. So I can either do it this way, or I can do it this way. And it just gives you kind of an idea. So looking at it and trying to assess, how many problems does it have. The other thing that you can use, and this is actually and none of these are expensive. This was $12, $11 on Amazon. This is probably $4 on Amazon. But
wow.
I actually used to use this. I used to use this when I was in Yellow Page Publishing. So, because we had to look at ads, and I was the manager for that. So we used this. That's what I always thought it was for ads. So you put it down on there and you kind of look, and you're looking for errors and problems. This is perfect for finding issues on comics that you can't see, or that you can't see with the naked eye. So it's a perfect thing to get. And again, it just folds up, and you just put it on the comic. You can kind of run it over it, and after a while, you get really used to looking for it. So you're looking for things. The important thing about using light is that you want to be able to look at a comic in a way. You can't just look at a comic like this and just look at it and go, oh, there's nothing. You have to look at a comic like this. You have to run light down it and be able to look at it. So like right here, I don't have a lot of light, but if I put that light up to my light right here,
see the imperfections.
I can see that. You can just see the waves or the imperfections, or you can see, a bump or a cut or, a ridge. And sometimes you can actually feel that even through the plastic if you really wanted to. Mm-hmm. So if you're reviewing it, you can kind of see it, you can kind of look at it, you can go, okay, these got breaks in it.
On this one right here I have.
Oh yeah. And I think the one you were showing me there, if you look at it, you also had the top right has some color. See the top right where the Comic Code Authority is. Yeah. So there's kind of pulled away and torn, and then the top part has chipping and everything else. So that's what you're looking for though. So if you're looking for comics that you're collecting, it's a lot of different things you can look at, and that might be one of the things you're looking at. Right. You might want that for your collection, and that's fine. And
the thing you were talking about too, Dave, the content, like on this one, I think we said this one from 1973.
Right.
Female freedom. No man is my master. I mean, look at that content.
And actually, a book like that might actually sell on eBay because there are a lot of people that collect it. But the other part of that is that they might collect it and they're like, you know what? I don't have that in my run and I want it, and I'm willing to pay whatever I need to pay for it. until I can find a better one. And that's what I always do. So like I have some stuff in there that, that I have in my run. Like I've got all, but I need number one of Howard the Duck. I love that comic. I love Howard the Duck. That's the 80s kid in me, right? But I love Howard the Duck. And
so let's do a quick review. It's a facsimile if you pick up one that was printed and you put it in, if it was not from the same run as what you're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you can use that as a holder, a placeholder. So you can get a facsimile of a book, and then not all books have facsimiles, but you can get a facsimile of a book, just like
I'm learning, Dave. I'm learning, man. I'm learning.
It's like the Batman Adventures. I have number 12, but I don't have the actual one. I have a facsimile in the position, but I have the entire run. And I'll find the 12. When I do find the 12, then I'll have the entire run. And someday I may sell it. And I'll probably have it graded, and I'll have some of the keys graded in there, but I may not. But like the same thing I was saying, but some people will buy a rough copy of something to put it in their run to hold a place until they find another one that's better. So, but that's where you want to kind of understand, looking at it, trying to understand, what the condition is, because at some point we'll start talking about next week. We'll probably talk more about condition. But what I want you to understand first is to kind of look and see if you can see the imperfections. And that's one of the things that the loop will help you do. This will help you do. You're looking for things like tears, you're looking for staple rust, you're looking for the spine ticks, spine rolls, and different things.
Well, even if you have those things, though, let's say I go to a yard sale and I see a rare one, but it's got rust on the staples. Mm-hmm. You're not going to leave the comic. You're going to.
No, if I found a Hulk 181 that was torn and rough, I'd still buy it. So. No, that's that. Yeah, so there really
the price you're going to pay for it is what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly, and that's going to determine the price. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of don't understand. Is I think every comic has to be pristine in order to be valuable. An old comic, you found an Amazing Fantasy 15, and the cover was torn and the back was off, and all this, it still might be worth $3,000. It really could be worth something depending on the level of damage that it has. And a book that might be a low or a mid grade that is a big key can still have value. So I have some books. I have a bunch of 12-cent Spider-Man books that I'm getting ready to list. And some of them are rough, but they will still sell for $100 because they're old keys and they're hard to find and they're rare and they're scarce. So it just really depends on the comic. It depends on the key, and if it's a key or if it's a big issue of some sort. So, but again, it's still important to understand the condition. So protect your comics. And we kind of talked about that, gave you the rundown on that. Get you bags and boards, get you the box that you need to stack them in. And then, the biggest thing is kind of learning to kind of assess the condition. So I'm thinking for next week, and what I really like for you to kind of, again, there's a lot of things you're looking for in a comic. You're looking for creases, color breaks. And when I say a color break, it means that, think of these, they're all ink, right? So and especially when people pull them out of boxes, they'll turn them, they'll twist them, they'll look at them. That breaks that kind of get it over here. That breaks that spine. And what will happen is it'll expose the white behind the paper. And this happens a lot more in especially darker comics like this. Finding comics like this that have a dark edge or a dark color background that don't have spine breaks is kind of hard. So
very rare.
Is very rare. So, but you're looking for that. You're looking for stains, writing. You're looking for any kind of tape or sticker residue. You also want to look at the back cover because, believe it or not, when they grade it, they look at everything. They look at the front, they look at the back, they look at the inside, they look at the staples, they look at the edges, and you're looking for a lot of these different things. And again, spine, you're kind of looking for the different things. You're also looking at corners, and that's another thing. So a blunted corner can be, a reduction in a grade. A perfectly edged corner, like something that comes from a new comic, you're going to see like a very sharp edge. Like these are not very new, but you see the sharp edge, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a sharp corner. So that's a big difference. In this book, if you actually look at it, you see the spine. There's the book. Apparently, whoever had this before, it was just in the collection. You can see that they stored this terrible. Look how bent it is. So anyway, it just needs a good pressing. But so anyway, that's some of the things you kind of, like I said, you're kind of looking for. You're looking for chipping, you're looking for tears, and it just, all it's doing is telling you the level of the grade on this book. And we haven't really set that guideline yet, but I mean, we can kind of talk about what a mid-level and a low grade is and a high grade. But honestly, a high grade book's going to have a very clean appearance. It's going to have sharp corners. It's going to have strong color, nice tight staples. It opens and it's nice. Really very minimal visible wear. If you don't see any creases or any structural, I mean, everything looks good. I would say that's a high grade. In a mid grade, you can probably have a couple spine ticks, maybe some little bit of corner wear on it. You might
these Doom books I picked up, they seem to be.
They seem very good. Actually, push that one up a little bit. Yeah, no, it actually looks really good. The color's good on it. The corners are good. There you can see maybe just a little bit of a, maybe that's even that could be a production issue too. You see the page is kind of off a little bit on the far right, but that could be a spine roll. It could be just a little bit of roll in there. You see the page as they kind of, you see the back of the pages coming through a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but that actually can be fixed if it's not actually a production error issue. But that's one of the things you're looking at. So mid-grade can have some small creases. It can have a little bit of surface wear. It can have some general handling wear. And as long as it's still complete and presentable, I call them mid-grades. And a low grade would be anything that has a lot of creases, tears. It maybe is missing a piece.
Folded.
The corners folded down and it breaks color.
Missing a complete cover.
could be this cover's gone. I mean, that's going to be low grade. So, but I don't. So that comic that you picked up right there, what would you grade that at? What would you say the grade is on that?
Well, what's the scale? Because I don't.
Low, medium, and high. Low grade, mid grade, or high grade?
I would give this a mid.
Yeah, I'd probably say mid. It may actually be a high grade, because if you kind of think about what a higher grade is, it's not going to be at the top of the thing, but it's also not. It's not in the middle of the middle either. So okay. It could be
low, mid, or to high, maybe.
Yeah, I would say it's mid to high. So because I don't see any issues with it. I mean, that may be a little bit of spine roll, but and you see if you look over on the edge, you can see that the color is still visible in the Marvel comics, and you can see the edge of it. But it's got a little, it doesn't even, looks like it's have sharp corners. So pick up another one and tell me what you think the grade is.
Okay. Let me see here.
And really not the grade, but this is more condition. I think that's probably what matters.
I can get one that looks a little rougher. I don't know. I mean, all these, actually, David, I picked up are.
The Doom ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, see the color's really good on that one. Yeah, the corners are sharp. I mean, it's hard to see from, everything from here, but I mean, if your corners are sharp, there's no blunted edges. You don't see any, do you see any spine ticks or breaks in the color where it just has a white spot?
No, and the staples look great.
See, so that would be mid to high as well.
When I picked these up, I was impressed. I was like, well, they were dollar comics.
Yeah. No, and sometimes dollar comics are great. Sometimes dollar comics look like crap, but sometimes they're great.
Yeah.
So
I think this is a good buy on a dollar comic,
I do too. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. So, and I love those Doom covers. They're actually pretty cool covers.
They are cool.
So
I'm gonna give you an assignment this week. I need you to find me number one.
Oh, I may be surprised. I may actually have a number one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of these different ones. So. But that was cool. No, I think so. It's one of the things. So like I said, for this week, just kind of learn what a low, medium, and high is. And, you don't really know exactly how many you have, but just think of it this way. If this book looks pristine and is perfect, and I don't see any problems with it, it's probably high. I can call it a high grade. And I'm not saying that it's a 9 or a 10, or I'm not giving it a number, because that high grade could be anywhere from 8 to 10. Right. And a mid grade could be anywhere from 5 to 8, and anything below a 5 could be low. Or your grading could be, 1 to 4 is low, 4.5 to 7 is mid. I don't know. It just depends on how you want to look at it. But
again, back to this one,
low grade.
You're going to grade this one low because
it's a low grade. Yeah, it's a low grade. And you know what? Believe it or not, a pressing and everything would clean that up. But there's probably people, like I said, because of the age of that book, because of the content of that book may be still valuable. It'd be worth looking up. Matter of fact, let's take that little exercise real quick and look it up. What is the name of this book?
Here, I'm going to give you the floor here. Turn your computer on. We're going to show it.
My Love, and it is issue number 25. Is it My Love or is it Marvel Comics Group?
My Love,
Nope,
Marvel.
it's My Love. My Love, issue number 25. Okay, so looking at
Share
the
your screen. Share your screen.
Oh, can I share my screen from you?
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to pull up and look at cover price. We're just going to take a quick look at that and see what you got. So that is called My Love, and it's issue number 25.
Yeah.
So this is one of the tools that I use, and I will tell you to always use. One of the things you can kind of do, and especially if you're looking at a bunch of comics, you can kind of go in here and take a look. But one of the things you can hit is the price table, and they have their raw ranges kind of broken up in here. Now you can see that it hasn't any of them shown any sales for slabs, so nobody's slabbing that book, but or grading it, as we should say. But it does show some prices for, and this is interesting to me. No near mints, no near mint minuses, or no VFs. It's basically fine, very good, or just good. And for the most part, that's about what you're seeing in there.
That's about where my book is, right?
You're probably right in the good area, about $5 maybe. And like I said, there's people that would probably want that book because they collect those types of books. There's a lot of collectors that collect those old 70s and late 60s romance books because they were around for quite a while in the era. What's another one that you got we can take a quick look at, though? But you can click further into these information.
Oh, I know. Hey, I know what.
You get a lot more information about this.
Can you look this thing up where I didn't have the cover?
What you could do is if you took a Google Lens and took a picture of it and it told you what book it is, but we can do that one. Is it, what's the name of Wizard of Oz? But is it Classics Illustrated? There we go. Hang on.
Classics Illustrated Junior.
Wizard of Oz. A lot of times it'll give us a weird guy if we don't see it. Let's see. Classics Illustrated. Might have to look a little harder.
This is from February of 1957.
Is there an issue number on it?
Number 535.
Number 535. Let's see if that shows up. There we go. So what's the price on that cover?
15 cents.
Okay, that would be, looks like it's this one then. Yep, Classics Illustrated Junior. So not a crazy expensive book. Somebody did slab one at one point that sold. But, it's in probably the lower grade, so maybe anywhere from $2 to $3. But again, those are the kind of books that sell well in auctions. Somebody might pay $2 for that because they want it because it's classic and it's old. So
right.
So yeah, so that, again, you can kind of use some of these cover price and different things like that. So some of these you can actually use. They're not that expensive, but you can search for the book, and then you can see variations and variants of it as well, which is kind of cool, so that you can know whether or not, what version of that book that you have. So any other ones you want to look up and get an idea of before we get off?
No, those are the 2 or 3 I was interested in.
Cool.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, very cool.
So, all right. So anyway, so that's kind of just an idea too. You get idea about pricing, but, it kind of gives you a range to kind of understand. So like I said, some of the books, even though the conditions might not be good, somebody still might be willing to pay for them. So like you said, you go to a garage sale and you see a stack of comics sitting there. A lot of times I will just make an offer on them just to see even if I get them. And I've taken chances on some comics and come back with some really good ones because I didn't realize what I had in there. So, but I think that's important to kind of understand. But I think it's more important to understand you're not going to take a magnifying glass with you out to a garage sale. Okay, so you're going to look at them. You're going to quickly assess condition. You're going to try and kind of in your mind assess whether or not this comic may be valuable or not based on age, based on the content, or based on the series. So, but that's kind of what you're doing. Now, if you're a collector and it's a Spider-Man comic and you collect Spider-Man comics, you're probably just going to buy it and, deal with it later. So that's always what's good about it. So, I think, we talked about tools. We talked about protection, which is only important. Always protect your stuff. So, so protect your comics. Anyway, got it on your mind. All right. So this is your homework for this week. All right. I'd like to see you try to get a starter toolkit. All right. See if you can find you the little loop. You might be able to find one. They're very cheap. You don't need this one. That's fine. That's a little more.
Hey, you could put that little one you got in a box and ship those protectors with it.
Ship them with the spacers and all that stuff.
I'll give it back. I promise.
I'm sure you will. I'll probably have 2 or 3 of them, but I got to look around. But anyway, I would say doing that. One of the other things I would definitely look at is make sure you get some bags and boards for those. And then, for next week, if you go to the comic book store, if you go back to any of them, pick out some comics of some different variations and things that you like, but different scales, and then try to inspect them. Now, even if you just go and you're taking pictures and you take a picture of a comic and you're just saying this is a low grade, a mid grade, and a high grade, just get an idea about what you got for grading, and then try to look for and identify any defects that you see on those, and that's kind of what you're trying to do. And then maybe take a photograph of that defect. So there's the other part of the assignment. So that way you can kind of look at it, and then we'll kind of look at it and see what you came back with and what you learned on it. So, and again, I still tell you that it's all fun. It's fun to sell comics, but I don't know. It's just more fun to collect them for me because I sell them. I sell a lot of comics, so
like a lot of comics ones behind you.
It's a lot. So all of those are for sale. Well, not all of them. Some of them aren't for sale. My Catwoman's not for sale that's behind me. So, some of them are mine. But some of them, they're displayed for a while, and that's great. I just sold one that I did love. It was up there. You can't see it, but it was the Venom #1 Lethal Protector. And I got it graded at a 9.8, and actually one of my viewers bought it, so I was kind of excited. So because he sent me a message, said, "Hey, I was one who bought your comic." So, but anyway, so it's kind of fun. Collecting's fun. Figure out things that you like. Go take some pictures and learn a few things about it, and see what you come back with next week, and we'll talk then. So
we'll do it. David, I appreciate you again. Lesson 3 is now in the books, and I'm looking forward to continuing my journey on this comic book trail.
Well, eventually you'll have enough comics you can run an auction with me. So
yeah, that's what we're trying to get to. I want to get to an auction with you. So
sounds good, man.
Man, I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to talking to you again on the Slim Flippers next week. Thank you so much.
Talk to you later.